The story of the birth of Kathakali as an act of artistic revenge against the obdurate Zamorin of Kozhikode, who refused to send his Krishnattam troupe that presents the story of Krishna in 8 days to the court of the Kottarakara Tampuram. And his humiliation of the aesthetic level of that court is well known. It was in response to that this ruler of Kottarakara penned 8 plays that told the story of Rama in 8 performances. He called it Ramattam, as Attam means play. It could also have a double connection with the Sanskritized Atta or 8. This went on to become Kathakali when the Tampuram of Kottayam added 4 stories from Mahabharata to it. Now that it was not just about Rama, it got a new name, Kathakali, the story plays, that rapidly grew in popularity among the common people. Although all Kerala arts have a sense of continuity over at least a 2000 years period, but each also depicts different aspects that enhance its creativity. It was the same in the case of Kathakali. From the point of its birth itself as Ramattam, it was accompanied by the Chenda. It is defined per its defining percussion instrument. The singers were separated from the artist, and masks were substituted by the introduction of the tradition of painted faces. The next clear indication of creativity can be found in the very schools of Kathakali that emerged from each was marked by unique strengths. The first school to emerge was the Kaladikot style that emerged in the village of the same name. The second was the Kapalingadan. The Kapalingadan school that was established by Kapalingadan Nambudri in the Thrissur district and spread in the southern part of Kerala. These 2 styles formed the northern and southern schools. The northern style places more emphasis on the intricacies of grammar and the set choreography. By the concluding years of 19th century, despite the primacy of the northern and southern styles, due to the growth of stylization in Kathakali, schools had emerged around master artists, just like the Gharana system of the north. Many artists went by the name of the school named after the maestro. From 20th century, it is Kerala Kalamandalam that became the most significant center for Kathakali. Now, Kathakali was formally institutionalized. The Kerala Kalamandalam teaches both the northern and the southern style, but it is more biased towards the northern style. Interestingly, outside of Kerala Kalamandalam, other more regional variants flourish. According to scholar of the Kerala art, K.K. Gopalakrishna, some of them bear a strong impress of Kudiyattam. Till the 1940s, the chutti or the white border to the Kathakali face was made of lime and rice paste. Its preparation and application was a time-consuming and laborious process. What is worse is it was very fragile and strong facial movements would end up breaking it or at least chipping it. It is believed that at a Kathakali performance at Tiruvalla, Ramakrishna Panikar, a drawing teacher who was also a chutti artist, experimented with thick white drawing paper on the face of an actor and Kanjara Ramana Pillai. This worked and it became an immense relief for chutti artists and Kathakali performers too. It spread fast among the southern school participation. The northern school practitioners held out as they were less receptive to change. It took the intervention of Pattikamathodi Ravunni Menon, who saw and realized its convenience at a performance in Aluva, before Kerala Kalamandalam opened itself to the convenience of the paper chutti. Today, the rice paste and lime chutti is passé, and this is the chutti used by all. In fact, some artists have even experimented with a plastic version. but to far lesser success as it is inflexible and application remains a problem. With the paper chutti, the face of the artist enjoys considerable freedom of movement. While the original themes of Kathakali were from Ramayana, Mahabharata, and the Puranas, it was not long before experimentation began even in themes. Broadly, this experimentation took two forms. In the first Kathakali, merely took unusual and non-traditional themes, but by its looks, treatment and aesthetics, it remained Kathakali. The other was the peculiar hybrid dance come theatre works that emanated as symbols of modernity in a several centuries old tradition. Since independence, almost 50 new plays were written, including some patent political plays. These political plays include Manavijayam, which was created specifically for communist audiences, since Kerala had the distinction of becoming in 1957 the first state in the world to have a democratic elected communist government. But none of the political plays, including those written by poet Vallatol, had great success. However, Krishnapadam, the only Kathakali play that was written by the great scholar and writer Mali Madhavan Nair in 1965, was a big success, being accepted enthusiastically by the northern and the southern schools, providing that it is myths that carry the day in Kathakali. Apart from the fact that it carved out strong roles for the characters, had the right degree of flamboyance needed, a resonant musical score, etc. It was careful in the use of chaste and rich Malayalam rather than a Sanskritized version of the language. Much efforts had been made with themes from different lands, whether the old Iliad or relatively newer Shakespearean plays. Much creativity has been shown in the thematic augmentation of Kathakali. Often ragas and talas remain unchanged, but one encounters different problems which have to be dealt with creativity. Julius Caesar's costumes created a problem and needed to be redesigned creatively. The Iliad had an English libretto, and when it didn't work, it also had a Malayalam one. But there is also the stream of novel hybrids of dance for theatrical impact. An international example of it is Dushasana Vada, which brought together Kathakali and flamenco. But there are several examples of Kathakali with different dance forms of India itself. In the pantheon of classical dances of India, Kathakali was the strongest visual impact and served as a masculine counterpoint of feminine dancing, even if it is severely constrained in the movements. But in the trade-off between what it does effortlessly and what it cannot do, the dice is loaded in favor of including Kathakali. That is why all multiform dance spectacles are Kathakali, opulent in its full regalia. Then there is the creativity shown in producing novel hybrids of dance come theatre, and the Kathakali flamenco production of Dushasana Vada using a flamenco dancer and a flamenco musician is a fine example. Sonal Mansing's three characters enactment of Gita Govind that had her Radha, Sadanam Balakrishnan as Krishna and Lakshmi Vishwanathan as Shakti. In this production, Sadanam Balakrishnan did not wear the mudi to allow for intimacy between Radha and Krishna. In many other productions that reflect the nation through the diversity of dance, like Pratibha Prahlad's Vande Mataram or Leela Sampson's Charishnu. More recently, in a performance titled Lasya Lahiri, Mohiniyattam dance Jayaprabha Menon used 7 Kathakali dancers along with 7 Mohiniyattam dancers to suggest the philosophy of the rasa. The dance drama tradition that developed along with the rise of nationalism, which used Indian inspiration and was exemplified by Uday Shankar, the role of Kathakali was significant. And Shankar's style was influenced a great deal by Kathakali. According to scholars Ruth Abrahams, Shankar was reposed to Kathakali on his tour of India around 1930 to observe Indian dance forms and create an all India company of dancers and musicians. It was then that he met the great poet Vallathol Narayan Menon at the Kerala Kalamandalam. Here, he also met the teacher Shankaran Nambudri. So impressed was he with this art that he stayed on to learn with Shankaran Nambudri for 6 weeks. Later, in 1938, he made India his base and established the Uday Shankar India Cultural Center at Shimtola, about 3 kilometers from Almora, in the Uttarakhand of Himalayas, and invited a host of eminent artists and teachers in this pantheon to include Shankaran Nambudri for Kathakali along with Kadapa Pillai for Bharatanatyam, Ambi Singh for Manipuri and Ustad Alauddin Khan for music. The first major work Shankara choreographed after his initial training in Kathakali was Tandava Nritya. Later, Shankara developed Kartikeya under the guidance of Shankaran Nambudri. Abrahams noted, as might be expected, the most noticeable change was evident of his work with Nambudri and incorporation of the Kathakali style of Hastamudra, which instead of following codified Kathakali usage was an imaginative and free form of interpretation. That is how, even in his iconic dance film Kalpana, he used Kathakali based creative movements and Kathakali based dances like bits of Todayam and Purappad, including the raised big toe in the Kalashams and the display of eye virtuosity in the 4 faces that one sees above the rippling hand, one of the defining moments in Kalpana. At Tagore Shantiniketan, Kathakali entered via Kelu Nayar from the Kerala Kalamandalam. However, as Tagore's desire was to synthesize rather than reinforce, the dance blended with Manipuri in terrestrial ways to lose its own identity and create a new synthesized identity. Chennai's Kalakshetra also ended up becoming a center for Kathakali in the late 1940s. T.K. Chandu Panikkara Asan left his hometown when the patron family fell on bad times. He trained a large number of students at Kalakshetra, including V.P. Dhananjayan and the late Kuniraman. They would do entire performances in Kathakali or be part of the ballets and dance dramas produced by Rukmini Devi. They would also provide items what were part of the Kalakshetra variety programs. Even today, each year, Kalakshetra hosts a festival, Kathakali, and including Kathakali in its own festival. Similarly, Darpana in Ahmedabad, set up by Mrinalini Sarabhai, wove in Kathakali in a significant manner. Mrinalini Sarabhai herself had studied with Kunjukuru. At her institute, however, in 1945, she had initiated training by Chatunni Panikkar, who created a special syllabus. Like Kalakshetra, Darpana's Kathakali department used to perform full evening performances, items and participation. In 1966, for instance, Darpana did a 2-day festival of Kathakali for the International Center for Kathakali, with the main male lead played by Chatunni Panikkar and the female led by Mrinalini Sarabhai. Mention must be made of the training in Kathakali received by American dancer Esther Sherman, who had taken on the Indian name Ragini Devi. Another foreign women dancer was Louise Lightfoot from Australia. Devi is the mother of the eminent dancer Indrani Rahman. Devi came to Kathakali in 1931. She started with the then fledgling Kerala Kalamandalam, with many of the gurus coming to her home to teach. She made arrangements with Valatol to allow the Guru Gopinath to accompany her to North India and help her prepare choreographies that she could dance and present. While she thought of solo female numbers for herself, she felt that with Guru Gopinath's presence, she would be able to continue her training, have the benefit of his masculine performance, and also get to create and choreograph new pieces. Together, they would do a romantic Shiva Parvati scene from Daksha Yajna. They created Lakshmi Narayana Nritya with Vishnu and Lakshmi dancing a Purappadu. Enthused Guru Gopinath created the flight of the eagle god, the dance of Garuda, with a bird costume, beak and all, and eventually a peacock dance for Ragini Devi, replete with the real peacock feather and tail. Thereafter, Guru Gopinath was very much at home with the creative approach in Kathakali and set up his own school in Trivandrum for this. Subsequently, several mixed forms of ballet and dance dramas like Sri Rama Bharatiya Kala Kendra Ramalila used Kathakali influence. In fact, the dancing Ravana performed much like a Kathakali artist. This is because the first version of Sri Rama Bharatiya Kala Kendra Ramalila, created in 1957, was greatly influenced by Kathakali. While from 1959 to 1962, Guru Gopinath directed it. However, presently the fusion of style allows you to identify the inspiration but doesn't allow any aspect to develop. Today, Astad Debu continues to use Kathakali as an inspiration for his contemporary work. Women at Kathakali. Kathakali is usually performed only by men. Female characters are portrayed by men dressed in women's costume. The subject of women in Kathakali has been a subject of debate and argument since Ragini Devi had come to Kathakali. Till then, most had accepted the limitation imposed on the women about training in Kathakali. Were women kept out because of the rigors of the art as its training? Were they kept out because of the intense intimacy of the Kathakali massage? Or is it patriarchy of its severest? By its very physical nature, Kathakali is not considered suitable for women. Performances are always held at night and could go on into the early morning. Also, in an entourage of 10 to 12 male artists, which include singers and musicians, the presence of a woman performer is often a liability. Menstruation is also a big issue. Kathakali requires more than 8 to 10 years of full-time professional training, which is generally not offered to women. It has been very hard for women to break through this glass ceiling. According to scholars, K.K. Gopalakrishnan, a few women made some endeavors from as early as 19th century. It was never in a male role. Although Kathakali still remains a predominantly male bastion, over the last few decades, there have been some exceptional women artists who have braved the odds to essay male and female roles in this theatrical dance form. But many of them claim that they suffer, for apart from living with the stigma of being attakari, that is dancer, these women risk being in close proximity with men, whether it is the makeup man or the many unknown male helpers that literally clothe them. They have to wait for hours to end with a full bladder and empty stomach. Often, they also have to fend off crowds backstage as people want to get a little peep into the Aniyara or the green room. At the International Center for Kathakali and some private schools, however, Kathakali is tough to women and many a time it is performance too. Women play male roles. The prestigious government-run Kerala Kalamandalam in Cherunturuthi does not admit women students. In 1975, a woman Kathakali troupe was created in Kochi with the female artist doing the singing and the acting. However, for costumes, chutti and percussion, chenda and mandalam, they banked on the males. Yet, they made an impact and a space for themselves against great hardship. Women performers claim that they face hostility from the fellow male artists. According to Bhadra, the main reason for this is that women's entry into the field is seen as a loss of income for the men. All female dancers feel that there is enough work to go around for everyone. But they do admit that there is a huge disparity in the remuneration, where a second level male artist gets rupees 4,000 a night. A woman artist, even though she may have done the maximum number of performances in that particular role, can only hope to get 1,000. While a male artist can have 150 performances a year, a woman is lucky if she can manage to get 4 in a month. However, no reference literature on this dance form has any mention of women. Gita's book, Kalyamar, Rainbow Books 2011, is an exception, as she has not only spoken to over 100 women dancers, but has described in details the life struggle of Chavara Perukutty, a Dalit and the only woman who has completed 50 years as a Kathakali dancer. It appears that the blatant omission of women from Kathakali literature is a patriarchy at its severest. In Kathakali, when the dancers perform to the song, while the words are being sung, he presents that Choliyattam, an interpretation of the text. One would then assume that with the end of the song, the dancer ends the Abhinaya. But that is when a vast canvas of Abhinaya creativity opens up for the performer. This is called the Ilakiyattam, or the untrained performance, unrestrained performance. In this, the performer proves his mettle and through detailed manodharma or flights of aesthetic fantasy, embroidered a rich tapestry of creativity in detailing. Here the performer reveals what a deft storyteller he is, as he creates a canvas populated by many characters and creatures. Here he reveals his skills as Pakaranattam, the depiction of many characters, as he changes rapidly from one character to another, often only through Nayanabhinaya. The real masters even do Ekalochana Abhinaya, the two eyes depicting different emotions. There is a change in the traditional setting of Kathakali that has led to many other changes creeping in and challenging its resilience and creativity. Once Kathakali was performed traditionally inside temples, palaces or abodes houses of nobles and aristocrats and driven by patrons' preferences. Long drawn, it was often starting at night and ending in the early morning hours. It would be performed to the light of the huge Kali Vilakku. Kali means dance, Vilakku means lamp. With its thick wick sunk till the neck in coconut oil. The gently flickering light of the lamp that would remain lit through the performance would add to the otherworldliness of the characters and make their faces glow. Today, however, performances happen in auditorium, in blazing lights, and rehearsals instead of galleries often happen in neutralized performance labs. With changed settings comes the issue of limited time slots. Sometimes these time slots are inadequate to reveal that Kathakali is a trimadhuram, that is triple the sweet, consisting of perfection in acting, music and instrument accompaniment. Thus, the leisure all-night performance have gone, and in their stead are shorter performances. sometimes so short that just a single padam is all that is often performed, not even the entire story. Although it would appear that it fails to live up to the name of the story plays Kathakali, the good news is that there are still a large number of students taking to the form and an excited and enthusiastic audience both in India and abroad. In fact, abroad, Kathakali has enjoyed immense popularity and impact. Theatre schools, directors, groups have been greatly impressed with its innate element of creativity. It is India that needs to recognize and honor the keepers of this skill. Friends, the art of Kathakali certainly calls for a rethought, and I am sure this presentation will give you a further insight into it. Thank you.